Hello, man. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, bro. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly.
All right. No, sorry, man. I got delayed.
It's okay. It's okay.
Okay, cool.
Um, what?
No, I was saying the only noise is I think they cutting grass, but you can't hear it now. Also can't hear it now, but I could hear it not too long
Yeah,
ago.
it's okay. My neighbors are also busy with like welding machines, but it's quiet now, so I think we're good both on our sides.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, man. I'd like to officially welcome you to the first episode of the Mental Health Talk Show. Um, just that my co-host couldn't join me. Clinton is a bit preoccupied at the moment, but for the most part, yeah, very much welcome to the platform, Zamo.
Thank you so much, man. I'm so excited to be on this platform, and congratulations on starting this new initiative. I think it's very much needed, and I'm honored to be a guest on this show.
Yeah. I was thinking about it for some time, and I decided to just like go in and do it. And having you as my first guest, I think it's the right move to take it further.
Yeah,
But
thank you,
for
man.
you're most welcome. But for our audience who don't really know what the show is about, the Mental Health Talk Show is an awareness online talk show on mental health and informing people on mental health challenges as well. So we'll be discussing topics such as depression, anxiety, stress, substance abuse, trauma, etc. And the reason I want to go with this is because I've been like depressed before, and so I'm very big on like raising mental health awareness and talking about those things because they're not so prevalent in our society, and especially among men. So I wanted to create a platform where people can engage with us and we can engage with them, talking about these things and finding solutions and common ground in helping each other um, walk this path. So the show offers like a safe environment which is free of judgment, criticism, and has a compassionate approach to people and to their challenges in broad. And so we want people to be free to express themselves fully, to speak their mind openly and freely. And so that's why we decided to go with this thing. And as our first guest, my listeners don't know much about you. So I'd like you to introduce yourself. Who is Zamugutle Masondo?
Thank you, sir. Yeah, so Zamosha Masondo is a depression and suicide survivor. So just like you, I've also, as a young man in South Africa, I've lived with depression, and it has gotten to the point where I've attempted suicide a couple of times, but I've survived. And I'm an author of a book called Cape to Soweto: I Can't Breathe Journeys uh, Through Depression, where I talk about my journey with depression. And ever since then, yeah, my way of surviving has been to talk about my story, to share what I've been going through. Because when I came out of my experience, I saw that there's not a lot of awareness. People around me, my friends, my family, they don't know how to support me. So I decided that I need to talk about my story, and I ended up starting my own organization called Dark Cloud Above Me, through which I create awareness on mental health, and I support people living with mental illness. We do support groups. We talk at different events. We host different events, and it's all around mental health and mental wellness. And yeah, I'm now a mental health activist and a mental wellness influencer. So in a nutshell, I'm also just a human. Um, I just love what I do. I'm a patriot. I love my country. Um, and yeah, man, I love life, and Yeah, I'm just a young man also trying to survive and navigate uh, this world and striving for health, happiness, and healing.
Mm. I hear you, my man. And I'm quite impressed. Especially as a man, like coming out and then being bold about you're depressed and like a suicide survivor. That takes guts
Yeah,
because because men usually don't talk about those things like openly. And for you doing that, that shows like a lot of courage, and it also sets us as a good example that we can invite other men to also join us, men who have been going through the same things, and also women, like people in general. It gives them that opportunity to voice themselves within society, where we live in a where people are not so free to speak their minds and to express their views, especially when it comes to mental health, because they are mostly ridiculed or mocked and criticized.
yeah,
And
definitely.
yeah, you can go on.
Yeah, because what I'd say about that is that I actually have a series that I did called Suffering in Silence, I think, and that's something that's been prevalent in my life and in the life of most men, in the life of men that I've supported, that, we learn how to suffer in silence. It's something
Mm,
that I'll go in when we talk about my story a bit more, but
mm,
that's also a survival tactic. We suffer in silence because we believe that men are not supposed to speak up, or we believe that's the best way we survive. We have to be strong, but I think that what I've realized is that, depression as a condition, it thrives through silence. When you're, that's why they call it the silent killer. When you're silent, it can keep you prisoner. But the minute you talk, you get help. The minute you talk, you get support. And I've always been striving through the experience of my journey and seeing what I did wrong. That, what, we need. This is something that we need to speak out about, which is even this podcast. What we are doing here, speaking about it, we are giving voice to something, and by speaking about it, we are in turn, waging war against this thing, and we are healing, because now this is not, we are not keeping our stories to ourselves. And some people can't tell their stories, but when they listen to this, they can relate, and in that
yes.
way, they are also finding their healing. And that's why I've always been passionate about sharing my story.
Mm, mm. Yeah, I also loved how you said like suffering in silence, like people like to keep things to themselves and then they slowly die inside instead of like being open and getting the help that they need. Um, there's this saying in Sped, it says "Monna ke nku o lela teng," right?
Mm,
It's basically saying that a man can't really speak out. He has to like deal with these things like internally. They mustn't like come out.
yeah.
And that's for me, it's a very wrong approach to modern life and to modern day issues. We should voice ourselves and we should get the necessary help we need. Not meaning that we should like talk to everyone we come across, but finding that confidence which we can share our most deepest feelings and our insecurities, our fears, and our problems. That's how we begin to heal, and that's how we begin to become better individuals as well. And the work that you're doing, it's very much good. It's profound. I'm proud of it, and I'm also glad to be a part of it as well. And this podcast is all about that. It's those baby steps of reaching out to a huge number of people that are suffering in silence. And hence, I think the more we get this message out, the more people can get the necessary help that they need.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I think what I can say about that also, you mentioned the podcast being a safe space, and with the work that I do and the support group that I run, and we're encouraging other people to be safe spaces. You can be a safe space for another person. This might be a safe space for someone else who can feel like they can listen to this and not be judged and have people that understand. I think as men, what we need to promote is that we can be safe space for each other, where I can feel like I can share something with my brother if I'm going through something, and instead I won't be judged if I talk to another brother about something I'm going through, but I'll get constructive advice. I'll get, you know, a directive to say this is where you can get help. I'll be supported, and that word, just safe space, is something important that we all have to be, or we can all be safe spaces, for each other.
Yeah, you're very right.
Yes, sir.
the-
Yes, yes. I think you cut a bit there, a little.
yeah,
I don't know.
it was the network. It's acting up a bit.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah. I think we've covered some of the basics that we need, and also like the importance of like mental health and talking about it, basically going through that journey and finding getting the healing.
Yeah.
I would say, why do you think most people are uncomfortable talking about like their mental health issues or actually regarding such things? Why are they not so open and free about it?
Yeah, I think the reason why uh, I think most people are not comfortable is because, I look at my story. For example, I think that people fear being judged. There's a stigma attached to mental, illness. I think based on many factors. One of it is based on the culture that we come from, because even someone asked me what is mental health in my home language, and the
Mm.
only word we come up with is like uklanya. It's someone that's mad. It's actually
Yeah,
termed
that's
madness.
great.
When I grew up, if someone we only knew that someone who's not okay in the head, in the township is
Mm.
someone that is bewitched. They would say, "Hey, this person was okay," and they were bewitched, not knowing that there are deeper things that are going on. We used to see a lot of people that they were not alright in the head. They used to pick up
Yes.
stuff, or they were not okay. But when we looked at them, we said, "No, this person was bewitched," and this
Yeah.
person. We never saw that this is a mental condition that this person can get assistance with. So I think people are scared because you don't want to be associated with the same thing. When we don't understand something, which has always been a case in our culture, when you don't understand something, you you fear it, and people fear what they don't understand, and
Mm.
yeah, you judge it, and I think that's what happens most of the time. I think even me and my friend were talking about, like, if your neighbors don't know what you're doing or whatever, they start to judge you and they start to say no. They are busy with witchcraft in their house simply because they don't know what's happening there. They don't know your life. You don't interact with them, So I think what happened is because we don't understand it, we don't have information about mental health and all of that, we fear it, and we label it as something that it's not. And I think that's why people are so afraid to speak out, because now in the spiritual circles also, they'll say it's demon possession. So people are scared to speak out because they're going to be judged and they're going to be labeled that they have something that they do not have. So people don't you don't want to be associated with that, and I think that's why it's very hard for people to speak out, because there's a lot of stigma then that exists, with mental health.
Yes, you're very right. Um, I like the part where you said people are afraid of being judged, because also in my case, coming out wasn't easy. We're talking about how I was depressed. It was not an easy task at all, but at least I had some few friends and my family that could understand. They could not grasp the whole situation entirely at the moment, but at least they understood what I was going through. And so that really helped. I didn't receive that harsh judgment from them. I received
Yeah.
support. They were able to give me the necessary tools that I needed to get my life back on track and to get the help that I needed in order to be mentally fit to continue with my life. And so the type of perspective people have on the health issues determines how people react towards society. So I think if people can be informed and get the proper tools on how to understand the mental health issues and people going through them, people can be more receptive towards them. They
Yeah, and I
can
think
begin, yeah.
yeah, I think what I can say about what you're saying is that, it's hard for people to accept, like if you say your family accepted, for me it was hard. They also accepted eventually, but
Mm.
people didn't really want to accept because number one, people will say, what is depression? They don't believe you, or sometimes because depression is not a physical illness, it does affect you physically, but it's not something that you can look at someone from the outside and say this person is
And
depressed.
point out,
Yeah,
yes.
and because you look normal, people will say, no, there's nothing wrong. It's in your head. You are thinking that
Mm.
you are this and you are not that. So sometimes for me, it was very hard because they're like, no, man, maybe you're making this up. Because when I look at you, there's nothing wrong with you. So you just have to get out of your mind that there's something wrong with you or whatever. So it's hard for people to eventually accept that this is something that's real, this is something that exists, this is something that, yeah, it's something that's there. So for you to get people that actually understand it and accept it, I think it's big because a lot of people you will not get that because people will always
Mm.
convince you that there's nothing wrong with you until you even doubt if you are, you feel guilty yourself. You think, am I making this up? Or
I should have
what
kept
is
it to myself.
exactly. So yeah, it's very hard because for many years I doubted to say maybe I'm just pretending. Maybe they're right, maybe it's just in my head, maybe I'm the one that's inviting and allowing this thing. Maybe I'm the one, I shouldn't give it power, it's all in my head, I must just say I'm fine and then I'll be fine. But it really doesn't work like that. You really need support, you really need to find help if you need it, and that's the only way and
Yeah.
I think that's why podcasts like this are important, so that we give people information to say this is something that exists, so that if
Mm.
someone talks about it and say they think they might be going through this, they can get the support instead of the judgment and going through what some of us went through, which is people just not believing that this is something that
Yeah.
is real, and yeah,
And they
that someone
actually
can
need
go through.
the,
Yeah.
yeah, and they actually need the help. Yeah, very right. Um, the I think there's a lot of work to be done, especially within Black communities, both on the older generation and the newer one, because the older generation doesn't seem to understand what depression is and mental health. So that's why they can't understand you well, right? And so you end up like shutting yourself down and the same things you went through because they're like it's the older generation. And with the younger generation, we have some idea of what's going on, but we don't want to voice it out. We don't want to talk about it. We'd rather suffer in silence. So I think there needs to be a balance that comes together so that the older generation understands and the younger generation gets the help that they need. And we should that's something we should strive to work on, especially within our Black communities. And that's one of the
Yeah.
main reasons that we should have spaces like this. We should encourage such dialogues, conversations, and programs that give information about these things. And
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
yeah, I'm really grateful that you brought it up.
Yeah,
You'll be
because I
suffering
just
from
wanted to.
depression. Yes.
Yeah, no, you can finish. I just wanted to comment on something about the younger generation when you're done, when you're just gonna finish your thought that you were
Yeah.
busy on.
Yeah. You can talk.
Yeah, no, because I wanted to say, you're really right. I've seen the difference between the older generation and the younger and the older generation is beginning to accept, through awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah, we find like when I look at my parents and my uncles and my aunts, these are people who they didn't know what they were going through, you know. But now
Mm,
that the information is there, they can start to understand. Now, I think it's only now that certain things are being defined
mm,
within mental health, and they are given meaning, and they are coming to accept it. But based on history, they did not. Um, but I see now something about the new generation, which is why it's also important, the younger generation, that we address this, is that we are a generation that avoids stuff, you know. Like
mm.
we would rather not address stuff, but we would ignore it and pretend it's not there. And that's why you have a culture, maybe in South Africa, where we rely more on entertainment and more than like we distract ourselves from things instead of addressing it. That's why you find us using things like substance abuse or overindulging
Yeah,
in things that we're not supposed to indulge in because we're going through something. Someone even said that we're no longer having fun as young people. There's something that we're suppressing within us
mm,
that requires us
that's true.
not to be home every weekend, that requires
Yeah,
us to overspend and create debt in order to impress other people. That requires us, you know, just to, in this social media generation, because we're trying to keep up with the Joneses, to actually live
yeah,
lives that we can't afford or that are not authentic to us because we're dealing with stuff, but we won't admit it because everybody's
yeah.
life is perfect on social media. No, everybody's making it all, everyone's pictures are high quality, and we
Mm,
don't know what it means to sit with our emotions. We don't know what it means to go through something. We just believe that we must be okay and our lives must shine just like everybody's life is shining. But that's not the reality. You know, it's okay to go through
mm,
stuff. You don't have to be like everybody else. And that's why I think it's important because there are so many other things that are affecting us even now.
mm. You're right. You're right, my man. The younger generation, we avoid things so much, and it's quite literally scary because we're just destroying ourselves in the process. I remember when I was depressed, I drank a lot of alcohol. Like I drank from Monday to Sunday. I don't know how I got the money to buy so much booze, but somehow I got it because I messed up my life so much. I dropped out of school. I failed my
Mm,
course in college. My mom was disappointed. Like everyone was disappointed, and I hated myself so much. So I needed to drink in order to avoid that reality. I
mm,
needed just to keep my mind in some form of unrealistic world out there. So I overindulged in alcohol. I even smoked for some time.
mm,
But eventually I was like, this is the life that I want to live. I'm so young. I can go back to the way I was. I can do things better. I can learn from my mistakes. I
yeah,
just need to be honest and truthful with myself.
yeah,
And this we put unnecessary pressure on ourselves because
mm,
we see certain people on social media, right? Individuals,
yeah,
and we're like, damn, I want to be like that. I want to drive
yeah,
that Mercedes Benz. I want to live in that townhouse. These things, they're nice when you look at them, right?
yeah,
But you and that person are so different.
yeah,
You're only seeing the bright side.
yeah,
You don't know what that person has done to get where they. You
mhm,
don't know what that person is thinking in that moment in that car. Maybe that guy is suicidal and he just wants to crash into something because his life at the moment, although it appears shiny, he has a lot to deal with.
yeah,
And people are so different. Like they're so different that we can't like say we want to live like other people because we have
no,
different talents. Our journeys are different. We are destined for different things. So comparing ourselves to other people doesn't really help us much. It's nice to want nice things in life,
yeah,
and we should work towards those things in our own unique ways, following our own paths, not following other people and what they're doing. And so in order to deal with things, we need to have like those honest conversations with ourselves in silence without any disturbances from the outside world and be like, as Bongani, what do I want? Who am I? And just write it down on a piece of paper and like think from when we're young right now and where you want to go and like just just be honest with yourself and you'll
mhm,
see that the outside world and what other people are doing with their lives, although yours is moving slowly, it won't affect you as much that you want to compete with people who are in the working class while you're still a student, or people who are in the corporate world while you're still like at the lower chain of the food pyramid or that hierarchy.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that
So
what I wanted to say is, when you talk about how you don't know how you afforded the alcohol and whatever, I think,
mm,
there's a thing where I know that, yeah, a lot of the young people are using alcohol, and we are not here to bash alcohol or talk badly about it. What I'm saying
it's
is
true.
sometimes, yeah, a lot of us, we have friends that if your friend sees
Drink.
that you said, he's gonna say, come, let's go and drink, because they know that, okay, if you are like this, alcohol can cheer you up, but it
Yeah.
becomes unhealthy, but it becomes where people will always provide it for you because they're trying to provide a nice time. They're trying to provide an escape from what you're going
Yeah.
through. For them, they're trying to help you. But that's why we're talking about things like that to where we need people to understand that you don't always need to, when you understand mental health, you don't always need to, if you see your friend said, decide, okay, I'm gonna buy this guy alcohol or let's go out. Sometimes that person just needs to talk, you know.
Yeah.
And what if they just need to talk at that moment and they need you to listen, or they need
Mm,
you to go, let's go for a jog, or they need you to help them to say, let's start a new routine, man. Let's take a
mm,
walk, or let's take a jog, or let's join the gym, or
mm,
let's go to church, or let's do something that's
mm.
different, or let's
Yeah.
volunteer and do something, but all we know, and we can't blame, we can't say they're not wrong, because if I decide that I'm going to buy you alcohol because I see that you said, that's all I know, and I'm trying to help you as my friend, and I know that, no, if I do this you'll be happy, but I don't know in the long run that if I keep doing this, now I'm creating a situation where you're addicted to substances, and all you know
Mm,
is what to escape. So that's why we're talking about this thing, so that people can know that, oh, okay, next time it's not only that I need to give him nice time if he's sad or whatever. Maybe he's dealing with
mm,
something and he needs to have deep, deep conversations that will help him think about stuff. And I can say, no, my friend, where do you need me? Maybe you need me to give you a 50 rand so that you can work on your CV and apply for a job. Maybe you need
yeah.
me. Yeah, you don't just always need fun or, someone to buy you alcohol or just distract you from your thing. Sometimes you need someone that's going to help you address it.
Yeah. Yeah, like we we need to be honest with our friends and with ourselves, and like the hard the hardest realities that we avoid often come to bite us in the end.
Hmm.
So we should not avoid these things. And the reason I'm saying is this because sometimes the situation hurts and dealing with it hurts, but avoiding it and like getting involved in like overindulgence just creates it to be worse, especially in the long run, because we're sacrificing more our future for the sake of like momentary fun.
Hmm.
So we should like think in the long term. And the thing you're saying is that sometimes your friend thinks is actually doing you a favor, but is actually ruining you. There's a saying that goes like this: the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yeah.
And that's and it's so true, man.
Yeah,
Sometimes
it
people
is.
think they're helping you, but they're
Yeah.
actually like destroying you. They're
But
actually
they
ruining
know
you.
that that's all they know. You understand?
Yeah, that's all they know. Yeah, that's all they know. So we need to be aware, and we need to educate ourselves and do some really deep self introspection and inventory as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm grateful that we're talking about this. I'm actually like I'm learning a lot as well. Like my mind is just getting blown away as we continue the conversation. So how how can we encourage dialogues or on mental health and like getting the message out there?
Yeah, I think we get the message out there, like I said, by sharing our stories, number one. Because I
Mm,
think that a lot of us, hence we started by speaking about suffering in silence. I think that
mm,
people need stories that they can relate to, and people need to, and I think that's why people like us now are setting a precedent where someone says, for me, for what I do, people always tell me that no, you're so brave by speaking about what you've been through. Like these are not stuff that men speak about, These are not stuff that we speak about. So people think, but for me, I don't think I'm brave. I'm just like anyone else who's telling their story. This is my
Mm,
story, and this is how I'm helping people, and this is how people survive. I think
mm,
as much as I admire that people think I'm brave, I want us to move beyond that thing where talking about mental health should be something like, oh, you're so brave. No, it should be a
mm.
normal conversation
Normal
that
thing. Mm,
anyone can talk about, to say, I'm going through one, two, three. Not that when you speak about it, you are made to seem like a hero. I know, yes, people celebrate me for what I do, but it doesn't mean I'm a hero. I'm just a normal guy, also trying to survive, speaking out
mm,
about this is what I'm going through. So I think that a lot of people feel like they can't talk because these stories don't exist, because we didn't
mm,
speak about it enough. People who've went through it, like you said, I think what we talked about social media and not knowing what someone is going through, people go through. We celebrate our wins in public, but our losses we take
mm,
them in private. People suffer
mm,
from depression in private, but you'll never know that they were ever depressed. You'll never know that they ever
mm,
went through something because they're not going to talk about that thing. They're going to hide it under the carpet. But when they're
mm,
graduating or when they're getting married or when they're buying a car, they're cutting the ribbons and they're celebrating loudly. So I'm saying that
mm.
we should be honest about life, and we need more stories, because once you come out and say, oh, now before I think for us, we are one of the first people to speak about what we are speaking in our communities. For me, so
Yeah.
I'm still one of the first person people know that have written a book about this, or that have spoken about this. So okay, Zamo spoke about it, now I can speak about it, and now you've created a way. So that's why I'm saying we need to create safe spaces. That's why I have support groups, so that now we are telling people no, it's okay to talk about it, so that someone else that's coming before won't feel like they are talking about something that people don't understand or whatever, because they know that the stories exist. That's why we need the podcast, so that someone can say, hey, I was listening to this and they were talking about this, and that can start a discussion among people to say, hey, on radio, they're not, or on podcast, they're not only talking about relationships or this or that, they're talking about real
Mm,
issues. There's actually a podcast about this. How
mm.
many mental health podcasts do people know? But now there'll be one, and from there, other conversations can happen, because people can,
Can happen. Yeah.
yeah, they'll reflect about what's been happening on this podcast. It starts a discussion, and people
Mm,
can talk from there. So I think that the more we talk about it, the more other people will find their voices. Like one thing I did say is that my story is not only my story, but my story is someone else's story, and that's why I tell
yes.
it, because someone can, some people can't speak, but they look at my and they're like, this is what I'm going through, and that will help them. So yeah, I think the more we speak about it, the more other people will, you know, see that it's okay and that they can also
Mm,
speak. So yeah, we're giving people freedom in that way to also open up.
yeah. You said some very insightful things. Like, and the most thing that I got from there was like, the moment you begin to tell your own story, right? You speak from the heart, sharing from your own experiences, what you went through, what you're dealing with, and how you dealt with it. It gives courage to other people as well.
Mm,
Those people might not speak out at the exact time, but
mm,
they can understand you, and then they can better understand themselves. And so we are beginning to build that bridge between ourselves and other people, that bridge that we can begin to work on together. And that's how people actually receive that help. You know, at the beginning, you said people fear what they don't understand, okay?
mm,
But as soon as people can relate to your stories, they
yeah.
begin to understand what is happening in their own lives. And as they begin to understand, they begin to take those necessary steps that they need to seek that help and to actually put into use in their own lives. And so having spaces like this really helps a lot. And I'm
Yeah.
grateful to be an initiator in my own community as well. Because
Mm,
I remember when I published my book in 2021 April, and
Mm-hmm.
people were so surprised, like depression. And the funny thing is that at first, some people actually made fun of me.
Mm.
They're making fun of me. They're like, Bongani, depressed? Are you just seeking attention? And after some time, some of those exact people started to come to my inbox. They were like, my man, I'm dealing with certain things. I think I'm depressed. Can you help me?
Yeah.
And then I just laughed in my mind, but I started talking to them, and then we started to be open, and then some of them got help, and they are getting on with their lives quite well. And so I think it was a good thing, although it's scary. Being an initiator is something very scary. When you start something new, people often like are a bit skeptical, but in the end, it all works out, my man. It all works out.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
so that's why I want us to really get the message out there, to touch as many lives as we can, to reach the borders of South Africa and even beyond.
Yeah,
That's
definitely.
that's how I think this initiative is, and its important is at that. That's its core values, reaching out there and getting the message out to the people, because everyone is going through something.
Yeah.
Everyone, even that guy you admire, and that person you also look down on, and
Yeah.
the one person in between, you're all going through something. They just differ in their degrees. And so having a space where you can actually come and listen to some people and then take part in those conversations, that's defining. That's progress. That's progress in life. And that's when you uh, begin to overcome your old self, because the most important thing is not about competing with other people. The most important thing is about being better than you were yesterday. That's the only competition you have. It's with yourself. And so
Yeah.
um, this platform, I think it's giving people that opportunity, and that's one way we can also encourage such dialogues on mental health.
Yeah, and I wanted to say that, I think mental health, people need to understand, which is something that I said, is that mental health is something that affects us all. We all have.
Yes, can you hear me, Samu? Hello, can you hear me, my man?